the smartest person in the history of humankind. Everyone has heard of Isaac Newton. You probably think of him as a physicist. But did you know he also predicted the second coming, or that he served as an executioner? Newton was a true polymath. Physics and mathematics were just two of his interests. But he was also an accomplished theologian. In particular, Newton was into eschatology. That's a fancy name for end-time prophecy. Newton spent days poring over the Bible. He wanted to calculate the exact doomsday date. After much calculation, he arrived at 2060. Newton believed the world would end 1,260 years after a specific date. That date was the foundation of the Holy Roman Empire. This notion comes from the Book of Daniel. The Holy Roman Empire was founded in 880. Hence, the year 2060 should be our last. Later in life, Newton delved into economics. He explored monetary theory and international currencies. Newton also held the position of Master of the Mint. He was responsible for catching counterfeiters. The most notorious forger of the day was William Challoner. Newton set about capturing him. He bribed and threatened thieves for information. He questioned the lovers and wives of Challoner's affiliates. Ultimately, Newton did catch Challoner. He personally ordered his execution. A total of 28 counterfeiters were hanged at Newton's orders. Newton also came up with ridges on coins. At the time, coins were minted of precious metals. They were as valuable as their weight. Unscrupulous folk would shave off the edges of coins. They used that metal to forge new ones. Newton added ridges so that shaving off would be obvious. When it came to science, he was no less inventive. He introduced multiple tools that had never existed before. Newton invented the derivative and integration. These are now basic functions in calculus. Newton also built a reflecting telescope. He formulated the famous law of universal gravitation. Strangely enough, it was made possible by the Black Death. In 1665, England had an outbreak of bubonic plague. Cambridge University was temporarily closed. Newton was forced to shelter in his manor. It was there that he formulated the laws of gravitation. This discovery did not sway his faith. As Newton wrote,
"So then gravity may put the planets into motion, but without the divine power, it could never put them into such a circulating motion as they have about the sun."
The story about an apple falling on his head is probably untrue, but Newton's insight was revolutionary. Gravity affects everything, from the tides to convection. Newton's equations are still used for things like sending satellites into orbit. Outside his work, Newton had no hobbies. He never married. Most historians believe that he died a virgin. It's not really clear why. Newton seemed to be afraid of women. He never courted or proposed. Voltaire claimed that he verified Newton's virginity after his death. Newton may have been too smart for his time. His professorship at Cambridge was unremarkable. The great scientist had little interest in teaching. His lectures were poorly attended. Sometimes no students showed up at all. But Newton's legacy looms large to this day.
"'Tis much better to do a little with certainty, and leave the rest for others that come after, than to explain all things by conjecture, without making sure of anything."
Isaac Newton, 1643 to 1727.